Hi guys, this is Dick and Marika. This is video number 2 in my series, The Hidden War in Plain Sight. And this is video number 2. So in the last video, I talked about how Satan is blinding the minds of the people of the world in order to use them to wage war against Christians and against Jews. Now, if what I'm saying is true, and what I am saying is what the Bible is saying. So in other words, if what the Bible is saying is true, then there should be proof of what the Bible is saying that is actually going on. Now we looked at in Revelation 12:17, the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war with on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. Now this prophecy was written over 2,000 years ago. So if this is true, there should have been proof, at least, somewhere in the last 2,000 years. There should be evidence of this war against Christians and also against Jews. How can we find out if that is true? It's probably highly unlikely that you learn this in your school and university, because all of those institutions, believe it or not, are controlled by the world. And again, we saw that the world is controlled by Satan. Okay, so he's not going to reveal himself of what he is actually doing. So I'm going to show you in a historical timestamp, a map of one of the first wars that took place against Christianity. Okay, so let's go look at that right now. So what you're looking at here, this is a map of the world basically. So this little area right here, I hope you can see it on my mouse. This little tiny area here, this is Israel. Contrary to what most people believe, they think that Europe or America is the center of the world, and that is not true. That is not true according to the Bible. The Bible said Israel is the center of the world. The Bible said, I put her in the midst of the nations. Okay, that's what the Bible says. So Israel really should be the focus if you want to study eschatology, end times study. You need to focus on what's going on in Israel, because that's really where everything is going on. And the final battle, the physical battle, will be in Israel also, and it's the Battle of Armageddon. Okay, I'm not going to go into all of that right now. I just want to show you parts of the history of the world and what happened. So this is the history of the world. This video is done by James Cagney. I want to give him credit. This is on YouTube. And you're going to see there's a timeline here above this video with AD in the year of our Lord. So after Jesus died, our calendar starts counting that way, right? So there's AD 100, 250, 500. And right now we're in the year 2020. So we're going to see what happened in the early part of Christianity. And we all know that Paul was really the greatest evangelist, period. He had the biggest influence on the growth of Christianity throughout the world. Okay, the Lord really used him in that aspect. So let's play this, and I'm going to stop it to explain certain events so you can see what is actually going on. I'm going to turn this audio off. So here you see Jesus Christ died, and the gospel starts spreading. So the red marks that you see on the map, that's Christianity. So this is Israel right here, and this is Turkey at that time. It was called Asia Minor. It's basically where Paul was actually from this area in Turkey, but it was under Roman control at that time. So this whole area where my mouse is pointing to, this was all Roman Empire. But the red part, that's what we are looking at. This is Christianity spreading throughout the world. So this right here, this is Africa. And this part here is the Middle East. On this side, this is Arabia. And other countries in the Middle East are in this part of the map. So this is Africa, this is the Middle East. And on top of that, you have Europe. Okay, this area is Russia. And here is Asia, China, India, and all this stuff. And here is Europe, basically. Okay, so let's play this again. So this is in the year 250. This is Rome here. This is basically the Empire of Rome. This is what headquarters of Rome at the time. This is Italy. Okay. So you can see Christianity really spread in a pretty big way. And you can see it really at first started to spread in Turkey. This is this area here, which is at that time was part of Greek, was also considered Greece. But today this whole area is considered Turkey. This map right here, and this is Africa. So Christianity first started spreading in Turkey, in Africa, and then into Europe. Okay, and as you see the map moving on, you see the years changing. Okay, now something is happening here, right? This is the year 600. What happened? Muhammad was born, and this was the birth of Islam, basically. So I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. But this is Mecca. This is where Saudi Arabia. This is where Muhammad basically started preaching the Muslim religion, the religion of Islam. Okay. And basically what happened, they took over Christian areas, and they basically through war, they conquered the Christian areas, and they converted all those people by force to become Muslims. So all those red areas that used to be Christian, and you're going to see how this is happening. Again, we're not talking about the war that Satan is waging according to Revelations. So you see how the green is spreading. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. So Islam spread all the way to Spain. Okay, so Spain was part of the Muslim Empire at one time. And you can see all those countries here that used to be Christian. Even in Arabia, they used to be Christian. Israel used to be Christian dominated. It's now all dominated by Islam. Okay, so remember, I'm showing you that the Bible is true, because the Bible is really, it's a prophetic book. So in other words, it tells you the things that are going to take place, especially in Revelation. It's a prophetic book. It tells you the events that are going to take place. So you can see here that those events that it was foretelling in Revelation of the war being waged against the woman and her offspring. And you can see this here, and this is actually, it manifested itself in a physical war, even though it's a spiritual war as we know it, but it manifested itself in a physical war. Okay, and that's the important part of the deception of Satan. Even though he doesn't fight himself, but he uses people. He deceives people through false religions, through religions, and even through ideologies, which I'm going to cover in a later part of this series. Okay, and you can see, so Christianity basically stopped growing in the Middle East and in Africa, because basically the Muslim Empire controlled that whole area. And then Christianity started spreading in Europe only at the time. Okay. You can see it spreads all the way through Europe. And this part here in the north, this is like northern, Eastern Europe, what they call. So part of this here is Russia and Ukraine and all those type of countries in the east of Europe. Okay. And pay attention here. So Turkey was really one of the first places that was a witness to by Paul, and they became Christians. So this area here, you can see how the Muslims taking over there, Islam is taking over. And this is the Crusades. They took control over this part of the Muslim Empire again to liberate Israel, basically to liberate Jerusalem, because the Christians were being persecuted when they made a pilgrimage into Jerusalem. They made yearly pilgrimages, and they were basically slaughtered for no reason by the Muslims in that part of the world. But then the Muslims took it back over, and it's been in Muslim control basically since I think the 1900s, after the First World War. And you can see here, a Muslim is trying to take over Europe. Okay, so you can see here that during the First World War, basically the Europeans took back control of most of Europe, basically, from the Muslims. And that is really where I'm going to stop with this part. But it is important to see and to understand how this is so important to understand that if Satan controls somebody's mind, controls a world leader, a strong leader, that he can use the leader to wage the war that we were told in Revelation chapter 12. This is basically the danger in underestimating the power of Satan. That he can control people's mind, and he can control their actions to come against Christians and to come against Jews, okay? So it's very important that you understand this. And one of the reasons that most of you probably have never heard this or seen this, again, because the school system, the education system in the West is really is controlled by the world. It's really a worldly institution. And that's why you have to be very careful. You have to know the word, you have to know the Bible, and don't take everything that they're telling you, in the education system, especially as it concerns to history, at face value, because what they're doing, they ignore large parts of things that are actually have happened, I should say, in order to sort of obscure the whole picture of the full history of what actually happened, how the Christians were being persecuted and slaughtered and basically wiped out of and taken over, especially in Africa and in the Middle East. Okay? So, and in the next part, I'm going to start showing you what has been happening since the 1700s, basically, from this day forward. There's a new ideology that Satan is using to come against the Christians, come against Jews, and you need to be aware of it, because the Lord God always warned his people about the enemies that they are facing. In the Old Testament, he warned Israel. He told them either to get rid of those enemies, basically, destroy them, or have nothing to do with them. And we know from the Bible accounts that Israel didn't always follow that advice that the Lord had gave them, and they suffered the consequences of their actions, right? And the same thing is happening today. The Lord is showing us who the enemy is, and he tells us to the New Testament, love not the world, neither the things of the world, because the world is enmity against God. If it's enmity against God, it's also an enmity against us. In other words, they mean us harm, okay? And you have to really understand that. They sound good, they sound really, they're not intentionally, I should say, trying to come against you, but because they have been deceived into believing a certain way that the Christians are really the part of the problem, and that they, doing something good by really coming against Christianity, okay? And I'm going to show you all of that in the upcoming video, so stay tuned, and I'm going to show you some more stuff that you really should be aware of. Again, this is Deacon Marika, and this is part 2 in this series, The Hidden War in Plain Sight.